Good morning, it's Chad Seay from Seay Real Estate here in Richmond, Virginia. This week I want to talk to you about a component of selling houses that will apply to some of you it won't at all, and that is private well and septic systems. So this applies to houses we sell in the country, so to speak. Not always. You'd be surprised how many properties are located close to town or even in some towns that have either a well, a septic system, or both. When we sell properties like that, it's usually incumbent upon the seller, the owner of that property, to provide the buyer with inspections of both of those systems. There's exceptions to this when houses are sold in a strictly as-is fashion where it's up to the buyer to do all of that due diligence and all the inspections and things of that nature. But in a normal transaction, we see sellers providing well and septic inspections for the buyers. In fact, our standard contract here in Richmond makes reference to that the seller will provide these things. In regards to wells, we have two types, two broad types. We call one of those dug wells or shallow wells. They often have concrete casings. In this area, they're 35 to 75 feet deep typically. And that's the type of well that if you ever hear of a well running dry, that's normally the type of well we see that happens to. Secondly, we have deep wells. Some people call them artesian wells, but they're not as broad in diameter as these shallow wells. They're a little more narrow and they go much deeper, hundreds of feet most oftentimes. Those wells, I haven't heard of one running out. I guess they could be tapped into a vein perhaps that could run out, but I don't know. We'd have to ask a well person about that, but they're more dependable and much deeper. When it comes to giving inspections of these, typically what's required is that that water samples are collected. They're taken to a local laboratory who tests them to make sure that they're free of bacteria and other contaminants. Lead is sometimes required with VA loans. In particular, they require that the water be tested for lead, and usually these go real well, these inspections. Every now and then contaminants are found, steps need to be taken. With septic systems, we have two broad types. One we call conventional septic systems, and I'm no expert, so again, if you want to know details and particulars, talk to someone in that field. But being in the real estate business, I've come to understand there's a septic tank, and from there there's a distribution box which distributes everything that flows out of the septic tank into the drain field, which will consist of various lines at differing depths in the ground. And a conventional system is just in good soil that absorbs everything that's flushed out into it, and it just operates fine by itself with no help. Beyond that, you'll hear mentioned alternative septic systems. Environmental regulations have made it these days so that the requirements of soil for a conventional septic system, they've gotten a little more strict. The soil now has to absorb, I guess better. It would be a good way to say it. The soil has to really be good at receiving what's flushed out into it. If it's not, the requirements have become more strict that a person has to use an alternative septic system. So this is a system designed to make sure that whatever gets flushed out there is absorbed in an environmentally safe manner. So there's varying types of alternative septic systems. They cost more than the traditional conventional septic system, but there you go. Those are two very broad categories. When we sell a house, we have to provide inspections of those systems. If it's a conventional system, it's typically probing the drain field, making sure things are being absorbed into the ground. If it's they also want to uncover the distribution box, pump out the tank, look inside the tank, make sure there's no cracks that are allowing water infiltration, make sure the distribution box is intact. It's all looked at carefully, and if there's problems, the seller is normally asked to remedy those prior to closing. And if you own that type of house now with a well and septic, should you have inspections done yourself? Well, you are required in most locales now to pump out that tank every 5 years or so. Beyond that, I guess inspections never hurt, just for you to know that everything is good. Every now and then we'll have a client will sell their house and they're just shocked to find out that there is a problem with their well or their septic system. Other people, do take a look at it on a regular basis and just kind of, know firsthand how things are operating. But I'd say most don't do it until it comes time to sell the house. So normally required by sellers when we go to sell their houses, these inspections. As you go to buy a house, just know that if you have a house with a well and septic system, you won't have the water or sewer bill that you'll have from living in town, excuse me, but there could be expenses down the road if either of those systems fail. Pretty big ticket expenses sometimes to install new drain fields or new components to that septic system, to dig a new well. I guess the benefit again is no water or sewer bill. So anyway, a little bit on that today. Don't know that it'll apply to many people. Don't even know that you're curious about that. But one of the components of selling real estate that we see on a regular basis that I thought I'd share with you this week. I'm Seay with Seay Real Estate, and I hope you have a great week.